Obviously, we didn't meet our goals this year. That said, I think you guys came in. This place is buzzing. Everyone's in, excited to attack this offseason, a big offseason for us. We're excited. We obviously have two great studs to build around in Joel and Tyrese. Tyrese took a big leap forward this year, and we think the sky's the limit for him as he continues to improve. Joel was incredible for us, a warrior for us to the end. So we're excited about who we're building around. Got to tip your cap to the Knicks. They fought hard. I mean, it was an incredible series, and really wish we could have gotten that back to Madison Square Garden, because I think that was a fun fight the whole way. This offseason's a big one. I owe it to the fans, to ownership, to everybody, to get this team in a place where we're competing for championships, and we obviously didn't achieve that this year. But again, we're very well situated to use all the tools, trade, free agency, draft, to upgrade the team, and we're gonna put every single effort into that. Coach Nurse is going to be right there with us. Besides our two great players, we think we have one of the best coaches in the league, and we're excited for the offseason.
Everyone raise your hand for questions, please. We'll start with Gina.
No mic.
No mic.
Okay.
I'll repeat the question then, yeah.
All good. Just, Daryl, the way the season went, how do you sort of balance, obviously, building around Joel, but then also having a team that you win without him, just given that if he does suffer an injury or something like that, just how to play without him on the floor?
Yeah, I thought we really challenged Coach Nurse this year. That long stretch without Joel was tough. I feel like I could have done a better job with the players so that we were in a better spot to win without him. That said, we do spend 90% of the time figuring out how to win the title with him. It can't be a big focus how we play without him. We know that team can't win a championship. It's really just how do we manage through it better. I felt like on me the depth wasn't quite there when he was out to win at the level we wanted to win at. I do think it was good for Tyrese and his development that he had to carry a huge burden during that period. But it's, we spend most of our time on how to win when Joel is here. I think that's the right thing, but we'd like to do better in those situations as well.
Dave Murphy.
What's your take on this year's draft, and do you think there can be some immediate help there?
Immediate help probably never comes in the draft. In fact, there's really only like something less than 10 but greater than 5 players, picked in the range we're picking in that are good in the first year. That said, we don't really focus on the draft for help now. I do really love 16. I like the storylines have been that the draft is worse. I don't see that at all. Actually, I'm very excited about who's at 16. That said, like we as you might expect, we have all options on the table. Trade into the future, so we keep more picks available for future trades. If we do pick, I'm excited about who's there. We could trade back, pick up a player. I do like having a good core of young players. I feel like we're developing that with Paul and Ricky Council. Hopefully, either the 16th pick or whatever pick we end up with in the draft. I do think you want to have a few young players who are pushing your vets, but we're mostly going to be a veteran-laden team. After an offseason where there's going to be a lot of change, just except for Nick Nurse, Joel, and Tyrese, and Paul and Ricky, we don't know for sure who's going to be back next year. So
Let's go to Austin and Kai.
Daryl, you've been on the record saying that you'll bet on high-level star talent. When you're thinking about the options out there and guys that are maybe older talents, how much does your belief in Tyrese sort of influence your willingness to take a bet on older guys versus guys that are 20s.
Obviously, you have to factor in age, but we mostly are we feel like we're in the window where we have to win now. We're mostly focused on getting the best players that fit with Joel and Tyrese. I think the storylines around how do you win in this league, I mean, for a good thing, I've been around quite a bit. I know there was a time when jump shooting teams couldn't win. Recently, you couldn't have bigs and win. Now the story is you have to have bigs to win. The reality is, like, you need very good players. You need better players than your opponents, and there isn't really a formula. To get to your specific question, I think as long as players are playing at a high level, we're focused on Joel and Tyrese, and we're focused on now. So you have to factor in age because I have to look at more than just one season. But the reality is, like, similar to we put most of our focus on the team when Joel is available. We put most of our focus on the now versus the future with where Joel is in his prime.
Okay. I guess just to kind of follow up on that, I think you were asked this at the trade deadline about like whether Tyrese's stardom kind of plays into any of your like kind of decisions heading into the offseason. Now that you've been able to see what he's been able to do, I guess on a big playoff stage, I guess, does that kind of factor into maybe instead of going after a max guy, maybe going after a guy that maybe fits better around JoJo and Tyrese?
We definitely are looking at fit. I think one of the things that we're excited about is Tyrese. You know, a year ago, it wasn't, if we had polled everyone in the media or all the GMs, it wouldn't have been unanimous that Tyrese could take that step forward that we hoped he could with James leaving and giving him a lot more responsibility. So we definitely look at fit. We're not really focused necessarily on the exact, bucket, whether it's max or role player or whatever. We're focused on getting the best players within the CBA constraints, which is basically like you only get so many, you only have so much money. Generally, historically, having top players works better. I know recently, again, just to talk about storylines, everyone's like, oh, it's the teams with depth that win. Well, of course, you go back a little bit and you have, recent teams that won without much depth, like the Lakers recently. You have teams without continuity that have won recently. So we're not going to have continuity. So we hopefully will have continuity going forward a little better. We'll have continuity with our stars and our head coach. But we're going to have a lot of changes offseason. So it's good that, recent teams like the Lakers, like Toronto, like the Milwaukee Bucks, who made big changes the year they won the title, they didn't have a ton of continuity those years. So long story short, there isn't like a formula. Everyone wants to find a pattern, and there isn't one. The pattern is have really good players and have them better than all the teams you're going to play. And we're not going in with a prescription or a prescription of what to do. So
let's go Keith and then Marcus.
Daryl, I know you don't have a lot of guys coming back, but what would you say is the biggest need that you to fit in next to Joel and Maxey are?
I would say the biggest need is, not at their position, someone at the wing who can play and deliver at a high level in the playoffs. That's the biggest need, yeah.
And for a follow-up, there's been like a lot of optimism since you came here, and with and Doc and everything, and now you have Nick, and it just seems like you guys have second round exit. What gives you the confidence that you can turn this thing around?
I think, Joel, Tyrese, and Nick give me the confidence that we have a good shot. Look, most of the paths you go down in the NBA lead to a dead end because, they're only letting one team win, and 29 teams are having this press conference every year. I think we put ourselves in a good position most years to win, and I just got to keep working hard to put us in an even better position. And we have an opportunity to do that this offseason.
Marcus and Dan.
Daryl, you've been here, I think, 4 years. You're going to be here another 4, according to your contract. You're halfway through what we expect to be your tenure. How would you grade what you've done so far? And do you think the franchise is in a better spot now than it was when you took it over?
Yeah, I don't think my job is to grade myself, so I'll leave that to you guys. But I would say, look, I'm disappointed. I'd rather, obviously, we should have gone farther, and all I can do is, come back in get with our front office and our coaching staff, and work with our great players on what's next, and give ourselves the best chance to win next year. So.
Do you think that you're further along? Do you think that the franchise is in better shape now than it was 4 years ago?
I think that's to be written. Like we have a lot of tools this offseason, more than most teams in our situation, with more draft picks, more cap space, and 2 great players. But that story is yet to be written. We'll have to see how the offseason goes, and then how we play. As you know, I tend to not be someone who says, let's make sure the roster is perfect on day one. I like building the roster over time, even throughout the season. You look at Toronto adding Marcus All, things like that. I think it's something that we'll know next season. Like, was there enough? So
Dan, Kyle, and Lauren, given his injury history, do you have any concerns about Joe playing in the Olympics? And is there any chance the organization would ask him not to?
Sure. I mean, the way the NBA has it set up, it's not even like a decision for the team. The players, that's it's something. I know for Joel, it's I was lucky enough to be at his celebration when we became a U.S. citizen. He's incredibly proud to be a U.S. citizen. It's a dream of his to represent the United States in the Olympics. I think it's important to support the dreams of your best player. I understand the questions. I understand, that there are folks who could have an opinion on the other side on that. But first off, it's not even in our hands. Second off, we would always support Joel and something that important to him. And I think it's really cool that he thinks that's one of the dreams he's had since he became a citizen.
Just as a follow-up to that, you talked about at the end of the year, you talked about being depressed because of his injuries. You talked about how beat up he was, how mentally draining it was on him. How do you guys sense he was at the end of the year? And is there anything you guys have to do to kind of prop him back up, I guess?
I think he was where anyone who went through what he went through and fought so hard in that series against the Knicks, who gave us a fight. And I think moments after a big battle, you're probably going to get that from anyone who put everything into it, and he did. So, yeah, I mean, I think those comments were to be expected after losing a tough series where he fought so hard.
Kyle, Lauren, and Josh.
Daryl, last offseason, without really litigating the James thing, it seemed like the divide was about money and maybe where James is at on the aging curve. If you guys go out this offseason and your big move is $50 million to a 34 or 35-year-old player, do you think it's fair for people to say, well, maybe you should just re-sign James for whatever he was asking for at the time, and not taking this year where it's just kind of a stasis year?
It's hard not to relitigate it because you included it in the question. So I don't really accept the premise of the question. People are going to disagree. We never got to the point where we could even discuss contract with him. And I know people are saying this and that and everything, but that is literally a fact, that we wanted to have those discussions with him and never did. So I guess I would not accept the premise. Definitely not against older players. If they can play basketball and they can fit with Joel and Tyrese, then we want them here. So.
Okay, so separate question. Do you think Joel needs to change anything about whether it's how he plays, his physical makeup? Like, a lot of people have pointed to someone like Tim Duncan, who slowed down some knee issues that he had by slimming down and playing at a lighter weight. Have you guys had any discussions with him about that? Do you think that's something that he needs to do in order to be as healthy as he can moving forward?
I mean, every year we sit down. When I say we, it's myself, the head coach, our medical staff, and work with Joel on, hey, let's put a plan together. And luckily, we don't need to do much because Joel cares about this, as you might expect. It's his life more than anybody. And we have not done that yet, but for sure we're going to sit down and have a plan with Joel and figure out what's best. He's already sent me a few thoughts on things, but it's premature. Like we haven't had the official sort of sit down and like let's put that plan together. But I know Joel is trying to think through everything. Like how can he make sure he's at his maximal abilities, once the playoff rolls around.
Lauren, Josh, then Daryl.
You talked about Tyrese taking the next step this year, whether it was off court or on court. What sort of finite ways did you see the expectations that maybe not you, but others had? In what areas were you most impressed?
I mean, I think he probably exceeded mine, which I'm going to, in that the step he took this year is extremely hard, and for sure not a given that he would have done it. But I guess we should all learn not to bet against Tyrese, given he's beat expectations every single season, both prior to coming here and then here. Look, you become the primary guy on the scouting report. That's a huge adjustment. Blitzes, you're the first guy on the film and maybe sometimes the only guy on the film, especially when Joel was out, how to stop this that he does, how to stop that, how to guard the step back, how to guard the speed, and the fact that he even had a couple of games, especially early when Joel was out, I thought it was quite challenging for him. But to his credit, working with our coaching staff and watching a ton of video and then just getting used to how people are going to guard him, he really took that step forward. But that was, Tyrese gets all the credit. That was not a given that he could do all that, and it's very exciting that he did. So.
Your reunion with the coach Nurse, how did year one look in this partnership?
Well, I think he took it just as hard as our fans, and look, one thing I love about Coach Nurse is he comes in every day, no matter who was available. And sometimes we didn't have Joel, Tyrese, Tobias. Like we often had like 4 guys out in some of these games, and he never was like, oh man. He was like, just tell me who's available. I'll go win this game. We'll have a good game plan. We're going to win this game. And obviously sometimes the reality of some of the teams we played smacked him in the face, but it didn't stop him from believing he was going to win the next game. But I was very impressed. Yeah, sometimes I'd be like, man, all these guys are out and we're playing one of the top players in the league. Like, that's going to be tough to win. But he always believed going into the game, which is why after the game I felt like he was always emotionally just completely wrecked. So, yeah. So.
Josh, then Daryl.
Daryl, you brought up Ricky earlier. Him and Jeff, the two guys that got converted to standard NBA deals this year. How much impact do you typically expect from guys like that on a team that's competitive?
Well, Jeff, to his credit, he's already contributed to some pretty good teams in Toronto prior to being here. So I think Jeff's a little farther along. With Ricky, the way these normally go, and we spoke to Ricky about this on his exit meeting, is your first year you almost have no chance. I mean, especially if you're undrafted. You have to prove yourself in the G League, which he did. The second year you have to really focus a lot on what you need to improve, and if you do that, you then need to give the coach a reason to play you, because you're probably not going to play a whole lot even in your second year. But I think with Ricky it could be defense. And so I think as long as his defense is at a high level, that when we take an injury or something next year and Nick is facing a really tough wing that maybe we're struggling to guard, he might go, you know what, I'm going to give Ricky a shot. Or it's multiple injuries like he had this year where he'll get a chance to play. And then I think sometimes you grab that job and you never let go. So that's how it can happen in year 2. Usually it's a little more into year 3, though, usually, just given where he was drafted and things like that. So.
With the changes in the latest CBA, is it still viable to build around 3 max 40-year max players? And if so, what's the challenge?
Yeah, again, I would reframe it as compared to what. And look, in those situations, I like having the challenge. Like, to me, finding the guys who are overlooked, the Kelly Oubres of the world, getting a Kyle Lowry, getting players like that. I like that challenge. I think that's something that the front office is very good at. And so I think, yeah, compared to basically you're like have less good players but more role players, I think Generally, the history of the NBA would favor, even with the new CBA, get studs who then you can put the work and the onus on the front office to find the players that fit around it.
Let's go with Paul, Sam, and Gina.
Barry, you mentioned Kelly. It seemed like he was a really good fit just overall, just his ability to cut, really fit the Knicks system, and kind of maybe took a step forward in his career. He also seemed to indicate he'd like to do that. Is he a guy that you would have interest in if the kind of place he started on?
We have interest in pretty much all our free agents. It's just like we're definitely not getting them all back. It's just the reality of the league. Kelly was one that he was just such a breath of fresh air. Played so hard. Won over the city, which isn't easy. Gave us really, really key minutes in the regular season, the playoffs. So he's definitely someone that we have interest in. Yep.
Sam, Gina, then Noah.
Daryl, after seeing how his tenure with the Sixers came to a close, do you still believe that Tobias can be a prominent contributor on the championship contender you hope to be, and do you think there's a chance that he's back?
Tobias for sure can be a contributing player on a contender. In terms of back, I give the same answer I just gave. We have interest in all our free agents. It sort of goes with Derek's question, in that you're always trying to fit in as many good solid players as you can, given the CBA bucket that we're given. And it's really not, does this player help? It's, does this player help within the context of the CBA, and what, at whatever number they're at, what constraints that creates for other positions you might want to help.
Gina, Noah, then Zach.
You may have answered this with saying that Tyrese maybe even exceeded your expectations, but did anything over the course of the year sort of alter, okay, this actually maybe shifts my thinking a little bit as far as how we'll approach the offseason?
Yeah, I think it wasn't clear that Tyrese, we all had very high hopes, and I think you'd have put pretty good odds on it. We did. That Tyrese could be, the second best player on a championship team. I think we absolutely believe that now. That belief went from high to, I think we're certain at this point that he can do that. Still a long way to go, but the fact that that's the case, that means the job becomes, to some of these questions, like how do you find the rest of the roster to fit around that, and to Kyle's question, how do you get Joel at his maximal going into the playoffs. So
I guess to follow up on that, too, I know having the optionality and the flexibility that you have, you would much rather have that than not have it, obviously. But just how do you sort of in your own mind go, okay, know when to pounce?
Sure.
Because like you said, this is kind of
the dating question.
Right.
Yeah, when do you settle down? I think that's basically by keeping just very focused on what gives us the best chance to win, and which things move the needle and which ones don't. And I think that there is a chance that all the balls go up and they all land. Then everyone will be mad, and that's fine. But what we definitely can't do in that situation is actually hurt ourselves to make sure we can still build a contender. The main mistake that could be made that we won't make is if some of the better options first don't go our way, trade into our cap space, free agents, turn our draft picks into things. If all those things don't yield what we want, we are definitely not going to just sign for a lot of money some player who's just a okay player. That's not happening, because that will be where we can't continue to build a contender on Joel and Tyrese. So in those scenarios, we'll be doing shorter deals and then using our draft picks to set ourselves up for trade or set ourselves up for the next opportunity when it comes. But we can't. We want to open all the doors to make ourselves a contender, but we can't close all the future doors unless we think the move we are doing can be the best team in the East, at least. So.
Noah, Zach, and Dave.
Mike Gill was a significant Denver pick. We talked about believing he fit nicely next to Joel and Tyrese. Obviously, he got pretty limited time next to Joel, but which made it for a year, and potentially
Yeah, I think at no fault to Buddy's. I think the fit was less good than I thought. He got, obviously most of his time was without Joel, but I thought when Joel was back that his impact and his shooting, that he'd get more open shots. He didn't, and so that's on me that it didn't work out as well as we hoped. I still think it was one of the better acquisitions. I was really happy he showed what he could do in Game 6, and based on how they're guarding us, what he can do. But for sure, I mean, there was no one more disappointed than him that he, fell out of the rotation because, I think Nick correctly saw, based on how they're guarding us, that it was hard for him to impact the game. And then when they changed up how they're guarding us, he did show what he can do. So. But yeah, I think Kyle Lowry and Campaign, both of them really added to the team, and I think so they were able to add at a high level. And then Buddy it didn't quite work as well as we'd hoped, but I do think going forward it still could work, depending on the other players that are around Joel and Tyrese.
Zach, Dave, and Kai.
Joel spoke after Game 6 and was asked about the optionality that the team effectively has, and kind of turned it over to you and the rest of the front office. Is it more your role than his? Even still with him feeling that way, is there a level of desire on your end to have his input on whether it's specific personnel or archetypes of players that the team's looking to add?
Yeah, all else equal, you definitely want Tyrese and Joel to feel good and comfortable about the players you're adding. They're so good, they can make any player work well or not work well. So I've always had a history of working with our top players, and obviously the coaching staff, to make sure that everyone feels good about those acquisitions. There are some times where, basically, either the head coach or the front office or one of your better players, it's never unanimous. Like, there are times when it's like, okay, two of those three feel good about how a player can help. Often you still often do it, and then over time they either prove that it's better than you think or worse than you think. And there have been times when I've thought someone wouldn't work as well and they work better. There have been times when Joel felt like, okay, I'm not sure about this, but then got very excited about that player. So you just have to have a lot of faith. The good thing is there's a lot of trust between all the key components, where you can take bets on players and feel generally good about how everyone's viewing it.
Last two, Dave and Kai.
Like Kyle said, the top of this year's free agent market is a bit long in the tooth, I guess you could say. The track record of teams that are counting on mid-30-year-old players to be superstars in the playoffs has not been great in recent years.
Yeah, like this year, yeah.
Right.
But you can go back 1 year or 2 years.
Well, we saw with James in the class, obviously age matters, and you're signing a guy that's,
I mean, Miami was built around Jimmy Butler, who made either the conference finals or finals like 4 times, 5 times, I can't remember. So
It's not a factor in your life.
it's for sure, you have to factor in everything, including age. My point is that we can't use the fact that a lot of those key players were out in one season and now say this is some new thing. In fact, if anything, the direction of the arrow on age has been that it's less of an impact than it has been in the past. So look, that's what I mean by you can't prescribe or proscribe anything and say, oh, we've now figured it out. I'm being 100% serious. You guys have been around for quite a while too. Most of the reporters in this room, it was 100% being written that you, for a while, that like, oh, bigs, don't need big. You need like lots of switchable wings and you're going to be fine. And now that's gone. So my point is like, it's never about that. It's always about get the best players you can, get a great coach, figure out how to win with that set of players, and then go win the damn thing. It's not about like, hey, this new thing is exactly how everything. We do know you want to be able to shoot more. I think we've learned that. That one's a long trend going for a long time. But other than that, I don't see many rules that tell you like how to build a contender.
But I guess what I'm asking
Yeah.
is, you picked the player.
Yep.
The player who's good in October.
Yep.
He's 6 months older and, much more wear and tear.
Yep.
How do you balance that in terms of like, hey, this is a great team
Yep.
A guy like Joel.
Yep. No, it's fair. Like, you want to figure out how to manage into the playoffs, right? But just again, because it's never about like, can this win? It's like, what is the best chance to win? The alternative to that would be a worse team that's always healthy. And I'll take the better team that you have to manage your way into the playoffs than the worst team that's always available. I'll take that 10 out of 10.
Last one, Kyle.
Daryl, I guess what was your thoughts on the 65 game rule of this year? And then, like, do you feel like that maybe plays to a factor when it comes to Joel's kind of conditioning plan, whatever, for the offseason?
Yeah, I understand why the league office did it. I would put all, and this is easy for me to say, but I would try as the league office to put all the focus on how do we make the regular season more important, so you don't have to create these sort of kludgy 65 is better than 64. But so again, it's easy to say when you're at a distance, but I've been pretty vocal. Like, just do everything you can to make the regular season more meaningful, more. The top two teams get a bye. The next, and the league. The good thing about the NBA, we innovate more than any other league. I think we'll get there, and this was sort of a kludge they had to do to try and like create this dynamic. But it's definitely a kludge. We just need to make the regular season more and more important over time.
Thank you, Daryl.
All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.
Are we psyched?
Let's bring us home, kid. Huh? Bring us home. Yeah, man, that was good. That was good. Happy fun. Hey, I actually was like going through Twitter and saw something nice Pat Riley about 65.
Yeah, I think the takeaway